In this issue of Setting the Record Queer, what if they say they're on a plum? Welcome to Setting the Record Queer, a podcast where queer people talk about the pursuits and communities they love. This is episode 11, and it's about webcomics. My name's Alexis, my pronouns are it, its, and she, her, and I'm two of your hosts.
My name's Kaylee, I'm your other host. My pronouns are she, her, and I am a little bit sick, but that's okay.
We're making it happen. Our biggest priority in life is this podcast, and so we're bringing it live to you no matter what. So, Kaylee, you're holding up, and I guess it's at least a good thing that you got sick after we got home, because dang have we had a busy couple weeks.
Yeah.
What with going to two major conventions, like, right in a row. So first we were at HEDQ, and we had our very first live show, and it was super awesome, and it's highly likely that you've already listened to it by now if you weren't there, so we're not going to dwell on that, but it was really cool. I had a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to doing more of them. Any thoughts, Kaylee?
We have gotten a guarantee that we are getting the audio for that. There'll be a video on Games Done Quick's YouTube channel at some point, but that'll be much later. If that hasn't gone up on the channel yet, it should be soon.
Soon. TM. So in addition to that at GDQ, we did a bunch of other stuff. Both of us actually commentated some speedruns. Kaylee, why don't you talk about what you did?
So I commentated, like, the best run at the marathon, FIA, which was at, like, 2:30 in the morning on a Monday, which, honestly, we had so much. We've mentioned Speedruns Rochester before, and it was a lot of the Speedruns Rochester crew was doing commentary because our boy, Corundum Core, was the runner. He's super cool, and you should follow him on Twitch.
Yeah.
He gave a phenomenal run. We got to chant "Eat the Voice" repeatedly on stream. It was a great time.
It was 2 a.m, and the entire back couch was crowded with the Speedruns Rochester crew, and it was so much fun. I got to commentate 2 runs on the Mega Man block. First was Mega Man 10. This ended up being, like, honestly one of my best commentaries ever. It was mostly me and co-commentator Zero Blade Edge. I felt like we ended up having a really, really good dynamic. Like, Zero brought, like, the knowledge, and I brought the hot takes about how Sheepman is the best robot master.
That's true.
It worked really well. It's true. And then the other one I commentated, this was a first for me in all of our years of GDQ. I commentated a run in the Awful Games block. I commentated Liz's Mega Man DOS run. I don't feel like I personally had a lot to say during that run, but oh my god, Liz killed it, and it was so much fun. But, you know, even beyond that, there was... Kaylee, you had some more fun during GDQ. Why don't you talk about your new addiction?
Demarine, who's awesome, taught me how to play Final Fantasy IV Free Enterprise, which was in the marathon, and if you've never heard of Free Enterprise, what it basically is it randomizes the elements of Final Fantasy IV. It gives you the airship right at the beginning, and it turns the game into a completely open world thing. Your goal is to get strong enough to beat Zeramis, and get the crystals to beat Zeramis, or the crystal, just the one. And then Zeramis turns out to be one of, like, several hundred random sprites. In my first seed, it turned out to be Petamus, which was Pete from Mickey Mouse.
It was really great. So, the other con we attended, we just stopped by for like a day or so at MagFest. MagFest was huge and kind of overwhelming, but it was pretty fun. So I ran Mega Man 6 at Mega Manathon, comfy morning hour speedrun. I got like a 37:48, I think, which is really good for a marathon run. And then also we did some really fun cosplays. Kaylee and I cosplayed a pair of the Pokemon Let's Go Master Trainers. I did the Magnemite Master, and Kaylee did the Eevee Master, and we got a ton of attention, which was probably mostly due to the fact that we were holding up signs over our head the entire time, thus making us visible in a crowd. It was a great strategy. It worked super duper well. There is nothing more fun in this world than getting attention while wearing a cosplay. So MagFest, all in all, great experience.
I would never go for more than one day because it's very overwhelming, but going for exactly one day is really fun.
Yeah, it was super fun. And speaking of things that are fun and absolutely terrible transitions, because it's late at night, and by it's late at night, I mean I have the sleeping standards of a toddler and or grandma.
It's 7:15.
Don't at me, okay? I'm tired. It's bedtime. Anyways, as we continue to push the limits of my bedtime, it's time to introduce our guest. So, hi, Olive.
Hello, I am Olive. She, her is my pronouns. Hello.
Hi, so you do something pretty cool. Want to tell us what that pretty cool thing is?
I do. Oh, before I talk about myself, can I just say, based on the thing you were talking about, I didn't see a lot of games done quick, but I saw the Mega Man 10 run. I was watching that with my partner the other day, and it was very nice.
Thank you.
And I was like, look at this very good video game. I love Mega Man 10. It's very underrated.
Mega Man 10's so good. Its music, the robot master designs, mostly Sheep Man, honestly.
Strike Man.
Strike Man.
What's the motorcycle guy? What is he?
Oh, Nitro Man.
Nitro Man. That's what I thought it was. Oh my god, I love it.
They're so good.
I love it.
But yeah, Olive, video games aren't really your thing.
No. I make a webbed comic called Rae the Doe. It is a comic about a gay trans doe, and it's there's jokes in it, and that's, I don't know. It's like a gag a day the comic, so it's kind of hard to like describe what it is really.
I can't tell you how that description was inaccurate, but I feel like it was selling Rae the Doe massively short, because Rae the Doe is freaking hilarious. I love it so much. We're so excited to have you on. Oh my gosh.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be on.
Can I tangent for a second and talk about exactly how we managed to get Olive on the podcast? Because it was pretty much Olive followed me on Twitter. Don't know why. I don't know why you chose to do that. And then I was like, oh god, this is my chance, isn't it? And then I freaked out for like a day or something. And then I finally worked with the guts like, okay, I'm gonna ask her to be on the podcast. And I sent this whole long, super awkward message. And then you were just like, yeah, sure, that sounds fun.
I only watch speedruns during AGDQ and SGDQ. I'm not really like I don't know a lot about it really. I don't watch a lot of things. I have very low attention span. But I've heard about you, and so many people have been like, "Oh, you should check out. They're great." And I'm like, "Okay." And then like I would always forget to. And then I saw you followed me, and I was just like, "Damn, I'll follow back. That's a cool person." So
I can't believe I'm a cool person. Truly the highest of honors. Anyways, why don't we move into some more fun stuff? So, Olive, why don't you give us a rundown of like how you got into art and comics, like just all the way back, dark and stormy night type story.
So it's so funny that, I don't know, Rae the Doe is the only successful comic I've made. I should also say I make Rae the Doe, but I'm also a 3D artist and an animator, and I'm gonna work on a game soon, and I also make another comic called Peacoat Season, another one called Sapphic Novel. Rae the Doe is like what I'm known for, basically. I've been making comics since I was like 5, and basically on the same level of Rae the Doe, where they're all just like 1 page long and usually a joke, and usually just most of them just nonsensical or silly or whatever. So Rae the Doe is basically what I've been doing like my entire life, really.
I mean, it shows in the quality of the work, I think. You know, usually we get longer answers to that question.
I know, it's like people expect me to have some like long story where I'm like, well, I was studying in Spain on a trip abroad program for my college, and I saw in the window a comic shop, and that's when I got the inspiration. And I'm just like, I don't know, I've just been drawing since I drew in middle school. I basically had a Rae the Doe of my middle school, but it was about an anthropomorphic potato man. And I would like put that in my school newspaper, and everyone like knew me as like, oh, that's Olive. They make the potato comic. But now I'm just like, that's Olive. They make the deer comic. And that's what the 200th comic was about. That like Rae the Doe isn't really like my first comic or my biggest well, I guess it's my biggest comic now because I've been doing it. I usually give up by now, but it's actually like the 5th time I've tried to start a webcomic. So I've been doing it a while, I guess.
I mean, I feel like the determination then has really paid off, because frankly, Rae the Doe is amazing.
I was gonna say, it's funny, I haven't missed a single update between number 1 and number 200, and I said, okay, if I miss an update, I know I'm just gonna keep pushing it off. And now, after 200, I took a hiatus, and now I'm kind of just like, when do I come back? I haven't done it in so long, I don't remember how to do it. But, so I was like, okay, I was right.
Well, Rae the Doe had a good 200 comic run. We're here to announce the end of Olive Brinker's career. Thank you for listening to Setting the Record Queer. Bye-bye.
I'm done drawing comics. I forgot how to do it. Rae the Doe is canceled.
Dang.
No, I'm kidding. It'll come back soon.
See, here's what you got to do. You're done making the comics. Let the viewers do it for you. Make one of those random comic generators. Just put every Rae the Doe panel in like a generator.
I don't know how to do that. I know it's like easy to. It's probably not that hard to like program it, but I just don't know. Like, I could probably do that in Java, but I don't know how to put it on a website because I know a very strange amount of coding. Like, I don't know HTML. But I've been trying to do that.
That would be amazing because it would just be a bunch of punchlines that don't line up to the setups that don't fit together.
I know, it'd be great.
It would be so good. So anyways, if you out there listeners want to make the random the Doe generator, feel free to get in our Twitter mentions and make it happen.
Yeah, this is my official, someone trained me in HTML.
That is technically what I do for a living. You know, technically speaking.
It's kind of funny. Like, I could probably do it in Unity, but like not on a website. Like, I have a weird amount of programming knowledge where I'm like, I can make an exe of it, but I don't know how to make it a website.
I mean, honestly, I feel like that's just kind of how programming goes. One time I used a programming language specifically designed for real-time audio composition to make a thing that give it a random list of text and it like spits one back at you. Didn't do anything for audio. I was just like, you know what? This is the language that it will be easiest in.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
So semi-recently, you made a Rae the Doe Patreon. How did that affect kind of your workflow with Rae the Doe?
It didn't really, to be honest. It affected it in the sense that, I made a Patreon. It feels like it was recently, but it was probably a year ago at this point. Because I made one comic that blew up, and then people kept posting it without a source. And everyone was like, oh, you should write by your name on it. And I was closeted at the time, and I'm like, no. Like, I don't want to make a comic that says my dead name on it. So I was like, what can I do instead? I was like, I'll just make a Patreon and then put that. Like it was I made a Patreon for the weirdest reason of just like, well, I need to put something on this comic.
I mean, if people are going to take your work without credit, you might as well get paid for it.
Yeah, exactly. But at that time, I had so much creative energy for Rae the Doe that I was literally like posting it a day early every single day to the point that like the update schedule wasn't like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It was like Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday. And I was like, okay, I need to cool off. I need to show this to someone, but I shouldn't be posting it so early every day. It hasn't really affected my workflow that much. I just post it early for patrons, and then everyone else gets to see it the next day. And usually during the school year, I was so busy that usually patrons would get it like 15 minutes early or something. But now that I'm not in school, I have more time, so I can post it like a day early for patrons.
Cool. So let's kind of dig into like the nitty gritty of like Rae the Doe stuff. So the first thing I kind of want to talk about. So, you know, this episode's about webcomics and your webcomic, but when I read Rae the Doe as someone who grew up with primarily reading like newspaper dailies, I get a lot of like the newspaper daily kind of vibe from Rae the Doe more than I get the expected webcomic vibe. So I'm curious where your primary inspirations lie for Rae the Doe, like in the style and everything.
Yeah, that's so funny. I didn't think about that when I was making it. Like, that wasn't a thing. I was like, I'm gonna make a newspaper comic. But it's like one of the one things that I've had so many people say to me that like it reminds them of what it was like to read newspaper comics when they were a kid. I really gotta think, because I've been trying to make like the things that inspire me to make comics now are things that inspired me like in high school or middle school even. But I remember I loved Calvin and Hobbes as a kid. I loved Pearls Before Swines.
Hell yeah. Also, that makes a ton of sense with how your humor is.
Yeah. Not a newspaper comic, but I really like Casey Green, all his work, Gun Show. He is a good boy. His current comic is amazing.
Oh, I love that one.
I spent a lot of time reading comics, like newspaper comics, and then as a kid, and then webcomics in middle and high school. And I kind of just like read a lot, and I would just like read them all day. And yeah. But you know what? Honestly, I don't know what it is. I even thought about this as a kid. I wanted to be a cartoonist, make cartoons, like an animator as a kid. But I would make comics mostly. And I was kind of just like, oh, I guess this is the one thing that I'm better at. Like, this is the thing the medium that speaks to me, I guess. So I guess I just keep coming back to it. I'm not sure why, but I like doing it.
I mean, it works for you.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I wish I had deeper answers to these questions.
I mean, honestly, that was more than enough. Don't you worry. Okay, so I guess this question is actually sort of unrelated to the tweet you made the other day. So I'm kind of curious how much of Rae the Doe, like the character, is you, and how much of Rae the Doe is maybe someone you want to be, and how much she's kind of her own character, because, you know, you both share the name to some degree, you share the deer to some degree. So I'm curious, you know, how much do you two align, and how much do you two differ, and how does that inform the way you write it?
It's really funny. Well, first of all, the Rae in my name is from Carly Rae Jepsen, and the Rae in her name is from Carly Rae Jepsen. So it's
Valid.
It's like a weird family tree where I'm like, no, my Rae is not her Rae, but it is Carly Rae Jepsen's Rae. But yeah, I'm weirdly defensive over this because I really didn't want Rae as my middle name, but everyone was like, it's a cute middle name, and I was like, but I feel like people are gonna think I named myself after my OC, and I feel like that's so weird. And then everyone was like, no. And I'm like, okay.
Okay, you have the same ancestry.
Yes. Don't. Oh, no. No.
How am I like the 17th person to make that joke? Or
I've never heard that joke before. It took me a second
nice.
to hit it. But it's funny. The comic started. If you read it now and you weren't there for when it started, it's kind of funny. The thing I'm about to say is gonna sound wild, but when I started the comic, Rae didn't have a name, and it was kind of like my mission statement to be like, this deer character doesn't have a personality. They're not gonna have any like recurring like personality. Like, they're not gonna have a name. They're just gonna be the stand-in. They're just gonna be like the character that's in every single one, and they're not gonna go forward with there's no continuity. But then literally, like, I just happened to make comics about my life, and everyone was like, wow, this deer is so anxious. This deer is so blah 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 blah. And I realized that it's just like all my personality traits. I'm like, all right, well, I guess the deer is a character then. So then that's when I decided to create Mimi and Sybil and Lottie, and did the whole thing where the Valentine's Day special a month after the comic started. So that was kind of me finally acknowledging and be like, okay, Rae is a character. Okay. And I think I gave her the name 2 weeks after the comic started.
Really? What was the comic called before that then?
There was just no name. I was just posting it on Twitter and just being like, here's a comic. It's funny. Everyone thinks the Do Re Mi thing. It's like, oh, her name is Rae because of Do Re Mi. But it actually, the original name was supposed to be Sybil the Deer. But then I changed my mind because I thought Sybil.tumblr.com wasn't taken because it said it wasn't. But then I looked and it was, and I was like, dang, okay. I'm like, what's another name? Oh, I like Carly Rae Jepsen. Okay, Rae. And I'm like, Rae the Deer. And I'm like, no, I like Doe better because it's 3 letters. They'll all be 3 letters. So I just stumbled into it.
I mean, it's a good name, so.
I know, yeah. Everyone's like, I love the name. And I'm like, it was my second choice. I'm like, it's not even the one I wanted.
I mean, at least you still got to use the name somewhere else.
Yeah, that's why I named her Sybil. I was just like, nice. Yes, I can finally use it because I love that name. I heard it in a short story once, and I was like, this is a cool sounding name. All right, I'm going to use this at some point. Yeah, people seem like, what's the difference between me and Rae? I feel like at this point, Rae is her own character, but a lot of the comics are based on things that happened to me. Just because, like, it's just a funny comic idea. Like, when I accidentally ordered a kid's meal, I'm like, all right, I'll make a comic about that. But I'm not literally saying, like, this is me. Like, I am not dating a skunk, and I did not die and then come back to life, etc. I did not save Christmas.
Or you want us to think that you didn't save Christmas, die and come back to life, and that you're not dating a skunk.
Okay.
Come clean. It's time.
Is this off the record? Can we...
We'll definitely cut this.
Sure.
This totally won't be on air.
We'll edit this out. We're not gonna edit this out. Don't worry.
Between you and me, I am a ghost. I did die, and I did save Christmas, but I didn't come back to life.
Oh no.
So
how do you write a comic as a ghost? Do you have like a special ghost pen or?
Very carefully.
Hey, fair enough.
So, would you say that you have a goal in mind for Rae the Doe? It's enjoyable, as a comedic work, but it's, there's also queer activism sprinkled in to a lot of different pages, issues. I don't know the word for it.
It's all over there. Everyone's queer. It's great.
Strips.
Yeah, I didn't really know that it would be, like, seen that way at all when I started it, but when I did the Rae Comes Out comic, I got so many tweets from people and messages that were like, this means so much to me. I'm so happy. This made me cry, blah, 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 blah. This means a lot to me. And that kind of opened my eyes. I'm like, oh, okay. And now I guess my goal is just to keep making a good comic, just keep getting better, only go up from here, but also just make content that is inclusive and affirming and just makes people happy.
Have there been any challenges in trying to balance those two aspects of Rae the Doe?
Not really. I've never felt like I've had to go out of my way to be inclusive or anything. I just make all the characters gay and trans and stuff because all my friends are, and so it made sense to make all the characters like that and stuff.
Wow. It's almost like, as the entire point of this podcast, our goal is to show that you can both be super cool and queer and do cool stuff. Wild. Kapow! This was the 11 episode lead up to the affirmation of the theme setting the record queer is over now.
But we do that every single episode.
It's over after every episode. It is canceled at the end of the episode and then brought back.
It's brought back every time we release the episode, and everyone was like, oh, this was so good. I was like, okay, I guess we'll do another. So setting the record queer really only exists for like a roughly 3-day period every 2 weeks, where it's like we release an episode and then we record another episode. Anyways, so from one occasional, very amateur comics creator to one who is less occasional and significantly less amateur, what are your comics tips and tricks? Obviously anyone can go look up, comics tutorials, how to draw XYZ, how to employ this technique. What are the little things that you've found that you feel like people don't talk about?
Here's a tip directly from me to everyone out there. If you want to save time, this is okay, I'm sorry, this is weirdly technical, but if you want to save time and make your comic look a lot better, make your own font, make your own font using your handwriting. Google how to do it. It's pretty easy to do. But then after you do that, there's a way to assign a brush stroke to that font to make it fit more in with the comic, and it makes it look so much better. It adds so much to the comic. You make a work path using the text, and then you add a brush stroke to it. Anyway, yeah, that's a very technical thing. But my other advice would be start really small. Make a comic that you can consistently make, because if you have a comic where it takes you a week to make one page, you're probably not going to get very far into it. You have to work up to that.
I spent literally 4 years of high school and I made 10 pages as the president of the comics club.
I did that too. With my old webcomic. I would make one page every 6 months. But I started Rae the Doe as a warm-up for my 3D thesis film I made, which was a lot harder to make than any Rae the Doe. I would just do it as a warm-up, so I intentionally... That's why Rae doesn't have hands. That's why, her design is so simple. She doesn't have a mouth. She just has one eye. That's why there's no backgrounds. They're always just standing on a flat plane of grass, and there's just a gradient background. Eventually, I just kept doing it because I guess it's the style now. But yeah, I intentionally made all the artistic choices to be as simple as possible to make sure I kept doing it. And I think that's the best way to start doing comics is just start as simple as you can and work your way up from there.
So, is there a larger webcomics community?
There definitely is, but I feel like I'm not part of it just because, I went from having 300 followers to 20,000 in a year. So I feel like I went from I feel like you should probably go slower than that. So, and if you went slower than that, you would meet more people along the way, and you'd set up I still don't know. Rae the Doe really doesn't have a website, and I haven't really tabled at any cons. Really, I'm friends with a lot of really good cartoonists and comic makers on Twitter, but it kind of feels more like it's an art Twitter community rather than a webcomic community, really, because there's so many webcomics out there that aren't on Twitter at all that I really don't see.
Is there a Rae the Doe community specifically then? Do you moderate something, or has something something sort of just sprouted up around the comic?
We do have a Discord for the Patreon, and there's a couple non-Patreon people in there, and yeah, there's a small community, I would say. There's some people that make fan art for it, but I mean, there's not like not on the level of like any popular webcomic, I'd say. There's not like a Rae the Doe like a fan forum or anything.
When are you making the Rae the Doe fan forum?
Never, because forums give me anxiety. The internet gives me anxiety. I'm just like, but yeah, there's definitely like a fan base, and they're all very great. But I don't know if it's like a community. I don't know. When I hear the word community, I imagine people like going to a convention or something. And yeah.
I mean, honestly, catch me cosplaying Rae the Doe at my next convention. And by cosplaying Rae the Doe, I mean give me a piece of cardboard and I'll draw an eye on it and put one on each side of my face, and we're good to go.
I met a Rae the Doe cosplayer at FlameCon. It was amazing because I was going to the bathroom because I have anxiety, and I was at like some meetup thing where like everyone was talking and stuff, and I was walking out. I'm like, okay, where's the bathroom? And I was looking for it, and then I saw the cosplayer, and I was like, ah! I was like, let's take a picture.
How did that feel, seeing like a cosplayer of your work?
It was like the wildest feeling ever. Like I was so not prepared for it. And then like I walked back into the meeting room, and the security guy was like, you didn't go? And I'm just like, I saw someone cosplaying as my OC. I like lost the urge. And he's like, okay. And I was like, thanks. I'm very awkward.
Talking people is hard. That's
Yes.
why we do a podcast. Wait, what? No, wait. We manage.
It's why we edit the podcast heavily.
Thank you. Please edit me heavily.
So how would you say being queer is, and like writing queer things in the like wider webcomics and art world? Is it how is it?
I mean, it's a mixed bag because there are obviously people out there that get mad at my existence and let me know about it. But by and large, it's really great. There's so many people out there that are making awesome content. It's awesome to see them. And I mean, like I said before, there are people out there that say they're like inspired by like the silly little comics I make, and I'm just like, damn, okay. Like it makes me feel like just the silly stuff I take time out of my day to draw. I'm like, I feel like it's actually like helping people. Well, I don't know, helping people, but like making them feel better, and it makes me really glad.
Is there anything going on in the comics community, like any sort of events or, you know, wider things that you participate in?
I'm trying. I really want to like table at a con or something. I haven't yet. I applied for FlameCon this year. Hopefully I'll get in. And besides that, yeah, I'm not, like I said, I'm like, I feel like I feel very weird about my position in the comics community, I guess, just because like I know so many people that have like tabled at so many conventions, and like, I'm not like bragging, but I'm like, I have like 20 times more followers than they do. And it's just like a weird feeling where I'm like, I don't know. It's like, I feel like I should have like worked up to this harder or something. I don't know. It's a weird feeling, but yeah, I would very much like to go to conventions or do something else or something. I'd like to be more involved with the comics community.
So, how would you recommend for someone to get started in comics?
In making comics or like reading comic, like just getting into the community?
Yes.
I more specifically meant in making comics, but if you have a good answer for the other one.
Yeah, like I said before, just I really think if you want to get started, even if you want to get started making story comics, I would say start as simple as you possibly can. Because the first thing you make is not going to be your magnum opus, and it's not going to be your most popular thing. Like I said before, Rae the Doe is like my 7th webcomic or something. So if you see Rae the Doe and you're like, I need something that's going to be as popular as Rae the Doe on my first try. It's like, no, it's not how it works. Don't worry. Just the first couple comics you make might end up being, they might not get seen, they might not build an audience, and you might lose interest or something, and that's fine. Just keep trying. And yeah, I really think starting like as simple as you can, or like basing it around your schedule, or knowing like if you're super busy at this time, go simple. If you have a lot of free time and working really hard and long on something makes you happy, then yeah, put more effort in. But just know your limitations is, I guess, what I mean to say.
Okay, extremely random question before we move on to the like next like normal expected question in the flow of this podcast.
I'm so ready.
Would you or Rae win in a fight?
Oh, it'd be me. Easily.
Why?
because those antlers are easily grabbable. And you just grab by the antler and just swing around, just throw her in a lake or something, and you win.
I guess it also helps that you're a ghost and she can't really like punch you or anything.
Yeah, exactly. I forgot I was a ghost. I forgot I even said that.
I mean, sometimes you just get so used to the ghost life, you know?
I know. I feel like I'm just... It's become its own plot twist of my life that I'm just like, oh... But I'm not even that surprised. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a ghost. I forgot. Why did I order this lunch? Came and eat it.
I feel like you're underestimating the offensive capability of antlers and ramming.
Rae the Doe is very clumsy. She would not be able... No.
Olive is the expert on these matters.
She would like try to ram into me and I would grab by the antlers and like suplex her. Done.
You know,
like,
that is a mental image I never knew that I needed. Follow up to this follow-up. When are you drawing this?
I'll draw me suplexing Rae the Doe and make it the... I'll get rid of the cover I posted for the book. I'll just make it the...
Okay, but that would be so good though. Yeah. Speaking though of the upcoming book, what now that we've just passed Rae the Doe 200, what's coming down the pipeline for Rae the Doe? You know, obviously more comics, you've got a book. What else is coming? What's changing now that we've hit 200? What's staying the same?
Well, I guess now that we've done a full year, I can kind of like look back and kind of like know what to expect for the future. I'm gonna go a little bit less hard, I guess. Like, as in, like, I don't think I'm gonna hit 400 next January. I'll probably hit like 350 or something. Like, I don't think I'm gonna be doing so many extra comics and stuff because I think I'm gonna spend more time working on other comics. But at the same time, because I've done a full year, like, spoiler alert, there's definitely gonna be a Rae the Doe Valentine special because we did last year and that was like my favorite thing.
Yes.
And there's definitely gonna be another Halloween special and another Christmas special. So looking at the last year, I can kind of look at the upcoming year and be like, all right, I'll do that from what I did last year and that from what I did last year. And I have some really good ideas for longer form stuff in the vein of Fawn of the Dead, the Halloween special from last year, but just kind of unrelated to any holiday. So maybe I'll do one or two of those in the year. But also, the game I'm gonna work on it this year, the Rae the Doe game, and I'm very excited about that.
I'm very excited for Rae the Doe, the 1,000-Year Door. Oh my gosh, no, I should have said Rae the 1,000-Year Doe. Dang it!
Speaking of the Christmas special, and I don't actually have a question here. I just want to say David Hayter was in that.
He sure was.
Who's that?
Solid Snake.
Oh!
That's all I have to say, because I heard that, and I'm like, wait, what?
It turns out there's a service where you can pay him money to say whatever you want. I kind of felt bad. I'm like, oh, what if David Hayter doesn't want to be part of this? What I don't want to feel like I'm tricking him, because most people use the service to make David Hayter be like, hello, Bob, I wanted to say, happy birthday to you. Like, it's all birthday messages or just inside jokes between nerds. So I'm like, oh, I don't know if anyone's used this in a video. So I even wrote a message being like, blah, 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 I'm making a Christmas special, blah, blah, blah. And he did it, so maybe he's a fan. No, he's not.
I mean, you don't know that.
I thoroughly enjoyed the queer reindeer polycule commune. That was really good.
Thank you. I love that Christmas special. I was so worried it wouldn't come together, and it just did, and I'm so happy. I finished it on Christmas Eve.
Oh gosh.
I know, I was very down to the wire.
I would not have guessed that when I watched it, so I guess you're in the clear?
I spent a lot of time on it. I would just like get home from work and be like, all right, and then just spend another 8 hours working on it. It was very like that is why I'm taking a hiatus, not because of 200. Like 200 wasn't that hard to make. The Christmas special was what made me be like, oh God, my bones and my artistic spirit. So I'm just taking a little hiatus.
Cool. So now why don't we get into our performance showcase? So, Olive, you've picked out a couple different Rae the Doe comics that we're going to talk about now. Naturally, since this is a visual medium, you're going to want to check the show notes. We'll be linking to all the comics, but we'll read each one, talk about each one a little bit individually, and then maybe go through some like overall stuff about like your process and stuff like that. Okay, so first one here, this is where my like descriptioning skills come in handy, but just check the show notes. These will all be linked. So the first one is just Rae is standing there, and there's a blue bird dude holding up a little 4-panel comic, and they're saying, "I hate your comic, debate me." And then panel 2, it's Rae sitting at a dinner table with a bowl of salad, And then the bird is there. And they're saying, you should have got soup instead of salad. Debate me. And then Rae and the skunk, whose name I'm blanking on, are at a movie theater, and the bird is in the background saying, going out to a movie is an unoriginal date idea. Debate me. And then panel 4 is Rae angrily yelling at this bird and saying, leave me alone. I don't even know you. And then the bird says, someone's afraid of logic and reasoning. I win. So a very pointed comic, I think, to say the least. Also, when are you hiring me for the official Rae the Doe audiobook?
That was a good impression of Rae the Doe, I gotta say.
Thank you. So yeah, this was a very pointed comic.
Yes, this was funny. Everyone said, like, you're clearly making fun of this pundit. You're clearly making fun of this person, this podcaster, this person. And I was like, no, I was making fun of people that were like, this was very specific because I made this after I made the comic making fun of offensive comedians, and everyone was like, actually, you're wrong, and debate me about it. And I was like, no, why do you think I owe you a debate? What are you doing? Like, the joke is that a lot of people seem to think that we live in the Wild West where you can just be like, draw at any point, but about debating. Or like we live in the Pokemon universe where you can just stand still in a cave and someone walks past you and you're just like, hey, let's get into a debate right now. Like, no.
That would be a way worse Pokemon game, honestly. I'm glad they have battles instead. Debate come on would be not very fun, honestly.
But yeah, the joke is this is I put this one because I think it's funny, but also I think this is a genre of Rae the Doe comics, which is I think a lot of people think that I'm like just trying to own people I disagree with, but the real joke here is that it's taking something that someone believes, but they don't like realize they believe it, which is it's normal to challenge anyone at any point to a debate, and then what do you call it? Exaggerating it to the point where it's like clearly something no one would ever do. And everyone's like, oh, you just do that to people you disagree with. I'm like, no, I do that to Rae the Doe too, though. Like, there are comics where Rae says, oh, I'm worried that my friends are going to replace me. And then it shows her friends are building like an evil robot Rae to replace her with. And it's like, that's the same joke. The joke is that what they believe is exaggerated to the point of comedy.
I also like the implication of this comic that Rae the Doe has her own comic.
She does. That's canon. Everyone, some people were surprised in number 200 when Rae said, I'm making a comic. And everyone's like, what? And I'm like, no, you can see in, I think I've only mentioned it like 4 times or something, that Rae makes her own comic, which is...
So is her comic about Olive the girl?
No, her comic's about herself. They're autobiographical. And everyone's like, does that mean her comic is hyper-realistic because it looks exactly like the Rae the Doe comics? And I'm like, all right, you're thinking too hard about this.
All right, well, let's move on to number 2. Okay, so panel 1, we see what appears to be a very young Rae the Doe wearing a very, I guess, like gender-neutral outfit. There's a little thing in the top left corner that says 2014, and the text bubble says, transitioning is so scary. Can I really do this? I'm scared I'll never be treated like a woman. And then in panel 2, you see modern era Rae the Doe coming out of a, what I suppose is a time portal, saying, Rae, I'm you from the future. Rae? That's the name you picked. Anyway, here's proof that people will treat you like a woman in the future, and Rae's holding up a phone. And then panel 4, oh my god. Older Rae says, see all these rude comments online? Those are all to you. And then little Rae says, oh wow. Once again, very pointed. And entirely not what I was expecting, but also very relatable.
Yeah, I like this one. I just think the punchline is very good of this one. And it's a good example of how it's one of the Rae comics that talk about her gender and transitioning and sexism, I guess.
So where did the idea for this one come from?
It's funny, actually. I know for some of these, my story, my where I came up with it is usually just like I'm at work ringing up, like the next one. I'll talk about the next one, but the next one is a very typical of I'll just be ringing up groceries at my job, and then I'll just suddenly have the idea of being like, oh my god, I just thought of a good joke, and I'll be like, I gotta write it down. But this one was, I remember exactly where I was. I was This was after I finished Rae the Doe 100, and I was on hiatus like I am right now. And I was like, oh my God, I just thought of a really good punchline. Like I thought of only the punchline for this comic, and I was like, I can't wait to make it in 2 weeks. And I was just like, yeah. But yeah, I remembered, I just thought of this really good punchline of being like, yeah, I don't know. I just thought of the punchline. I was like, damn, this is a good comic. I can't wait to make this in a while from now.
Do you usually come up with the punchlines first?
For a pun, for all the pun comics, someone asked me, I don't know if this is one of the listener questions, but someone asked, when you asked on Twitter, they said, do you have a stockpile of puns? And the answer is I do not have a stockpile of puns. I usually think about a word very hard and try to think of different meanings for that word, like mistletoe, when I made it a giant robot foot that shoots a missile that is a toe out, or the fighting game comic one where the
fighting game comic was so good.
When the fighting game character is a kitchen with lots of counters, because I was just like I was listening, I think I was watching a fighting game tournament, and they're like, this character has a lot of counters, and I was like, counters, kitchen counters. What if a kitchen was I always like it's like a conspiracy board of like red string, and I'm like, counters, kitchens, fighting game, kitchen. But I say usually what happens is for a comic like this or the Debate Me one, like the really pointed ones, or the ones that are just the joke is, or the relatable ones, all the ones where like the joke is just them doing something. I usually won't start with a punchline. I'll usually be thinking about how I could turn something funny. Like an example is the one where the Rae buys a new gaming PC, and it's lighting up her room when she's trying to sleep, and she goes, "Oh, this is like being in an Edgar Allan Poe poem about being a gamer." Like that. That was me writing the script of like, okay, establish that she has a computer, establish it lights up, and then cut to her, and then I'm like, what would the last panel be? That's usually how I am. And it's funny, I don't think a lot of people know it. Actually, there are some comics where I'll take more time writing the for text than I will draw it, because I want to like get the phrasing just right and the pacing leading up to the punchline, or like make sure that you can't for a pointed one, make sure no one can misconstrue it, but people will anyway. Like the Debate Me one, of course, everyone was just like, well, not everyone, but some people were just like, actually, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, stop it. Actually, I would never break into your house. That is the weirdest comment I get on a lot of my comics, let me just say, is, I would never do what's happening in this comic. Okay, then it's not about you. Okay, then why are you commenting that? Like, why do you think it's about you? I don't know who you are.
I would follow you around all day asking you obnoxious questions, but the moment you went into your house, that's where I draw the line. How dare you misrepresent me?
Not all debaters.
Oh my.
Kaylee is facepalming. Anyways, let's move on to the next comic.
I love this one.
Here's hoping I could read this one without laughing. Okay.
Oh, I would love to. I'm excited for your descriptions.
Okay, so the first panel in this one is just sort of a blank panel. It just says workout tips with Rae the Doe. And then it shows Rae standing and saying, working out is all about being rude to your body. You gotta confuse your muscles to get those gains. And then the next panel, it shows her angrily yelling at her, right arm. It's kind of hard to tell. And the text just says, "You're a leg." And then the next panel is just Rae looking at the camera, absent, like just completely blank stare, with the most ripped arm I have ever seen.
So I didn't think about it until you read it out loud, but I actually really like that. I like this one just because of the punchline, but I didn't think about it. But this one had a really like funny me thinking about it at work. My original joke was, working out is all about being rude to your body because you're trying to confuse your muscles. Like, how rude is it that you're trying to confuse your muscles? And then I thought about it some more, and I'm like, well, if I wanted to confuse my arm, I'd shout, "You're a leg" at it. And then I was like, oh, but then like Rae could be buff. Like, it was just such a...
The fourth panel, it's so good.
Yeah.
The look is so perfect. I love it. Also, all of the deer's limbs are legs. I have to step in and say that they're all legs.
Not in this universe.
Fair enough.
That didn't even cross my mind until just now.
That was the first thing I thought when I was looking at the panels. Like, you're like, well, yeah, of course it's a leg because she's a deer.
Also, I'd like to say this is a good example of pacing that you wouldn't really think about, because I thought about making this 3 panels, but I think for some reason it's funnier if it's 4 with a blank panel. I don't know why, but I think if it was 3 panels horizontally, it would be less funny. And I can't explain why.
I feel like it kind of sets like, workout tips with radio. It kind of sets your expectation for something specific.
Yeah.
I mean, even if not to expect that, it sets it up as a comparison, possibly a parody of something that would genuinely say, workout tips with I don't know, John Cena, someone buff. Like, it has set your expectations for that, I feel like is what it is, maybe? Rae the Doe, John Cena crossover win.
Oh my god, I would love that. Can't see me.
No, this is a podcast.
I just said you can't see me as completely serious while talking about John Cena.
I mean, hey, you're a ghost. Of course we can't see you.
That is John Cena's catchphrase. I would just like to say.
It's also true of ghosts.
I am well aware that it is John Cena's catchphrase. I have seen Scooby-Doo meets the WWE. Thank you very much.
I was just confused because you didn't laugh.
John Cena is a ghost. Send tweet. Moving on to comic 4. Oh gosh. This character's name is Lottie, right?
The possum is Lottie and the moth is Sybil.
Okay. I was like, I think I remember these names. Okay, so panel 1, it is a panicked-looking Lottie talking to Rae, who says, Rae, Sybil asked me to hang out, but I'm not sure if it's a date. And Rae says, just ask her. And then, oh my god, the next panel is Lottie with Sybil, and Sybil is eating from a bowl of like purple, wrinkly-looking fruit. And Lottie says, hey Sybil, thanks for the dried fruit and everything, but is this a date? And then Lottie says, just, Your work in expressions is incredible to me because of how simplistic the style is, but it's just the perfect dumbstruck obvious face on Sybil's face saying, no, it's a plum. And then Lottie is thinking in the next panel, I knew it, we're on a plum.
You see, I don't even think that Sybil is like dumbstruck. Sybil is just kind of like, no, it's a plum. And then Lottie's like, oh my god, I knew it.
I just, maybe not dumbstruck is the right, but just like the perfect amount of like,
yeah,
no consideration for the weight of what is being said. Like, no,
yeah,
plum.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, that's the right word. It's just, yeah, not to toot my own horn, but I like this one a lot. This is another one where I feel like I'm just dissecting all of these to the point where they shouldn't be, but I like doing it.
I mean, this is exactly what we wanted out of this segment, so...
Oh, okay, perfect. I really like overthinking things, like, way too much. Like, I'll just be talking to people about stuff, and they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, you don't feel this way about this credit card commercial? I'm like, you don't think that guy gave her a look like this? So doing it for my own stuff is very fun. But this is an example of wording where I spent a lot of time thinking about the specific wording of this one. Specifically, what is the fruit that is not a date? Because this is very important because everyone said, oh, it should be a prune. A prune looks the closest to a date. But I knew it, we're on a prune is not very funny. And I can't tell you why. But I knew it, we're on a plum is very funny. And I don't know why.
You're absolutely right.
I literally looked through a list of dried fruits and I'm like, no. No. And then I'm like, and the thing is, a dried plum is a prune. So that's why Lottie specifically says, thanks for the dried fruit. So I'm like, this will let the audience know that this is not a plum. This is a dried plum, which is a prune.
I didn't realize that a major goal of your comic was to educate people about fruit. Do you have a sponsorship from like the FDA with like the food pyramid people?
I would love to do a nutritional rap as Rae the Doe.
They pulled the food pyramid 10 years ago from being inaccurate, but for some reason they forgot to take me off of it.
I love the food. I love that the food pyramid was like, eat a lot of bread, kids. It's great. Eventually work your way up to vegetables. And I'm like, I'll see if I get there.
I mean, I've spent my life mostly eating bread, so hey,
Yeah.
They did their jobs, I guess. I guess.
Me too, and look how far it got me.
So, let's talk just a little bit more about, your kind of writing process. So I think we've already talked about how it's often like the words that come first, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So when you do comics, do you usually write one at a time, or do you usually write in batches?
I don't really sit down and say time to write a comic. I'm usually, almost all my comic ideas come to me while I'm at work, and it almost comes to me like it's not my choice. Like I'll just be ringing up an order and I'll see like, and I'll just suddenly have like an idea of being like, oh my god, this plus that equals that. Ah! I'll have shifts where I think of 5 comic ideas in that one shift, or even like 3 in the same hour. And then I'll have some shifts where I don't think about comics at all because I'm just thinking about like Tangela or like anything else. I don't know.
Tangela, the perfect Pokemon.
I know. I can.
The optimal fusion of Noodle and Orb. Oh, I could rant about this all day.
I love Tangela so much. They are my favorite Pokemon. And there are some days at work where I'll just think about Tangela for like 8 hours straight and just be content. But yeah, I don't really like sit down and think like time to write this awesome comic that is going to strike down some truth. I'm usually just at work and being like, what if they said they were on a plum?
All right, well, there you have it. All right, so yeah, be sure to look at the show notes. You don't want to miss the expressions in some of these comics. I feel like they really make the jokes. So be sure to take a look at the show notes. Yeah, so let's move into some of the questions from our listeners. So for every sepidode of this podcast.
Wait, start over.
No,
don't keep
that's
rolling
every
that.
7th episode of the podcast. Every sepidode.
All right, I guess we're keeping this.
And if it's a 7th episode that's also about a deer, it's a sepido. Anyways, every 7th episode. No. Every episode of this podcast, we take questions from our listeners, from you right now, who's listening to this, maybe, for ourselves and for our guests. Usually just for the guests because they're far more interesting than us and, super valid. So if you want to ask questions for, whoever our next guests are going to be, you can do so on our Twitter at STRQueercast, via email settingtherecordqueer@gmail.com, or in our Setting the Record Queer community Discord at bit.ly/STRQcord. So our first question for Olive comes from Lunalia in the Discord, who asks, how are you so good at puns? Please give me some tips to help me one-up my friend who's also good at puns.
Okay, here is my real pun strategy. This is how I think of puns, which is, as I said before, I overthink everything. I think about everything way too much. So, here. I'll go on a word generator right now.
Oh, are we getting some live punification?
I'm gonna see what I can do. I'll see if I can think of a pun. No, what is this? This isn't a word generator. You're asking me to put letters in. That's not how words work. What is this? You're asking me to make a word. That's just a text box. Yeah, it was like, oh, here's your random word generator. Please enter letters. Like, what? Okay. Like, okay, I'm not gonna make a good pun, but this is, I did a random word generator. I got display. So if I wanted to do a pun with display, I'd be like display. So then I would do something where I'd find a sentence where saying the word display as in like a computer display and saying this play as in this performance of theater both make sense. Of being like, see, this one would be a hard one. This one would take a while to find the right wording because this play and display would have it's weird grammar. See, a good pun, here's another pun tip. A good pun, you shouldn't have to ever say a sentence that doesn't sound, it has to sound natural. Like, you can't be like, oh, do you want to see my display? And then they're like, your display, and you'd be like, yeah, display, and then you show theater like that. No, because that's not, you wouldn't say, do you want to see my this play? That's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is try to not say the word before the words that contain the punchline. Don't say them before the punchline. Let me give an example. I think I said, okay, now please notice how much effort goes into me not saying any of the words in the punchline. Did you hear about the wizard who turned invisible to sneak into a dock workers meeting just so he could insult their workplace? He wanted to disappear.
I love that one. I already saw it, but I love it.
Oh my god.
Just to not say the word peer, I had to say a dock worker's workplace. Like, if you want to have a powerful pun, you got to put in the work of not saying peer in your setup. That's my tip. And also just think about mostly compound words, like disappear. That's a really good one. Display. That's not a strong one, but it's what came up in my word generator. But yeah, think too much. Don't put your punchline in the setup. I forgot what my other one was, but I gave another one, didn't I? Yes. Oh yeah, the other one was say it naturally in a sentence.
Okay. Our next question comes from Michael the GM in Discord, Do you have any advice for would-be webcomic artists? How do you know a story idea is worth pursuing?
Story webcomics. That is a good question. A story is worth pursuing if you want to do it, really. The story webcomics I've tried to do, I've not done successfully yet, and I'm rebooting. The story webcomic that I tried the hardest on, that I honestly feel like this is the most me work I do, like this is what I'm the most passionate about, and I feel like it reflects me the most, is Peacoat Season, which I used to do in high school, and then eventually I gave up on it, and now I'm redoing the whole thing. But I think what's most important when you're working on a story-based webcomic is that you can consistently work on it so that the story doesn't like get unnatural or like have weird pacing issues where it's like really brisk when you're able to work on it a lot, and then suddenly like you come back to it and suddenly it's like going super slow or whatever. But honestly, just like I said before, work within your limitations, like know what you can do and work to the best of your abilities, and work in a story that you're passionate about. Because I think that's what's gonna, if you're not excited about the story and you're just making a story because you think other people will like it, you're not gonna wanna, because it's such a commitment that you should do something that you care about.
Next question comes from Violet Moon in Discord. If you could write a guest strip for any comic, web or otherwise, what would it be?
That is a very good question. Oh my goodness, that's a good question. I would really like to do a guest comic of He Is a Good Boy, just because I really love Krang, or Crange, however you pronounce the acorn man's name. I just really like that comic a lot, and the character is so funny. And I love Casey Green's work. He is like my favorite cartoonist. Another thing I would say, but I've already done it, is Secondhand Soup. I love that comic, but I did a guest comic on it, and that was very fun to do. Everyone should check out that comic. It's amazing.
We'll put a link in the show notes.
Nice.
All right, at My Silly Comics on Twitter asks, as a fellow comic creator, I often feel idea burnouts, in which no matter how hard I try, I cannot think of anything funny and or good to make. I get really anxious when that happens, and start worrying that I've run out of ideas. What do you do when that happens?
I am constantly worried that I've had my last good idea, and that I'll never think of another comic again. Like, my brain will just stop being able to make comic ideas. It's just a constant worry for me. But what I basically do is I have a like a backup list of comic ideas. Some of them all the way go back to 2013. So if I ever like really can't think of anything to do, I'll have a backup and be like, okay, I know this is good. Or like, and sometimes I'll be like, okay, this isn't that good, but whatever, it'll go up. I think something that really helps you with this fear is just realizing that everything you make can't be amazing. And some of the stuff you make is just gonna be all right or even like mediocre. And that's fine. Like, you can't hit it out of the ballpark every single time. And no one in the history of the universe, because you kind of like just imagine that there are people out there that are just like, huh, this one was a little bit below my standards. Goodbye. Click, I'm done with this comic. Like, no one in the universe is like that. Everyone is, no one cares when it's just slightly worse than usual or whatever. So just kind of allow yourself the freedom to make mistakes, or not even make mistakes, just to not hit it out of the park every single time. Sometimes you just make something that's all right. Don't put such high expectations on yourself.
That's a good tip. Got a question from actually one of our former guests. You should be sure to go listen to her episode as well if you're just tuning in for Olive, which, good decision. Listen to everyone else, though. Those are also good decisions. From Borquiqui, aka Christian Borky. Olive, have you ever read Rae the Doe fan fiction? If so, what was it like? And if not, are you looking forward to it?
I have not. Well, people have made fan comics. Does that count?
Yes.
I think that counts.
Okay, then yes, I have. And they're very good. One of my fans is like, I don't even know if they count as a fan because I'm like friends with them, but they made a really good it's Rae and Mimi on a couch, and it's the TV saying, "I'll do the descriptions this time. No, Billy, this isn't the past. This is the future." And then Mimi says, "I'm thirsty, but I don't want to get up." And then Rae says, "I gotcha, babe." And then her antlers extend from her head like super stretchy, and they twist and turn through the house to the fridge and hand Mimi a soda, who looks terrified.
One Piece is my favorite character in Rae the Doe.
I very much enjoy the sound effect, which is zoop.
Oh my god, that's so good.
It's very good. Oh,
All right. And then our final question is from at Birdloather on Twitter, which is a terrible username because birds are great, but you're super valid. Don't get me wrong. Who asks, when will you show the rest of the cast's teeth?
I think everyone's teeth have been seen, actually. This is my call-out post. Everyone keeps saying, when are you gonna show the rest of the teeth? Lottie's tooth is always visible. Sybil's teeth, you can see, because she has her mouth on the front. Pascal's teeth are always visible. And I think you can see Sawyer's teeth. I think their teeth are visible. And you're gonna say, what about Mimi? She doesn't have a mouth either. Well, her teeth are visible in the Halloween special, and it's very scary. So everyone's taken care of.
Well, that's a pretty good answer to that question. Not only is Olive a ghost, but Olive is also a time traveler who refuses to not impress and, went back in time and added everyone's teeth to the continuity before answering this question.
I have a weird amount of knowledge of this comic, even though there's been 200 comics. I remember almost all of them, to the point that people ask me really specific questions, and I'll be like, or they're like, can Rae drive? And I'm like, well, actually, it's been answered in this one comic. She can't, because she's shooting gasoline out of a gas pump. Because it's the purge, and any crime is legal, and in New Jersey, you can't pump your own gas. So she doesn't have her own car, so she's kind of just shooting it into the air like it's a fountain. And she's like, I wish I had my own car.
I had no idea that pumping your own gas wasn't legal in New Jersey.
Oh, it's great. I thought this was normal for a very long part of my life.
I pump my own gas once a month, just like everyone else.
I was in New York for my graduation. My family was in New York, and we were kind of stressed out because we needed to get gas before we got home, and we're like, none of us know how to pump gas. So can we get the person working in the gas station to do it for us? And they're like, no, that'd be weird. And I was like, all my New York friends are gonna hate me if I told them about this.
All you do is stick the nozzle in the hole and squeeze it.
I don't even know how to drive. I failed the written test.
I don't know how to drive either.
I failed the written test that they give you in high school. Not even the written test of the DMV. The test that's you're driving in the street. What should you do? Drive into the ocean or keep driving on the street? And I'm like, ocean? And they're like, no, you don't pass this. Don't ever get a license. And I'm like, okay.
Also, in fairness, I do know how to drive. I just don't have a license.
That's fair.
So I don't drive. Working on it. Anyway, so we're moving in now to our final segment of the podcast, which is, of course, as always, Kaylee's Question of the Week. Now, each week, I ask a question that's, pretty normal. The sort of stuff that you would be asked upon boarding a spaceship or whatever. Standard clearance questions. Standard government survey. Mars colony questions. Anyway, this week's question is, if Rae the Doe was adapted into a TV show, what genre would it be? Or what genre would you want it to be?
I thought this was going to be a different question. I got excited. I thought you were going to say if Rae the Doe got adapted into a Hollywood movie, what would it be? Because I have an answer for that.
Okay, give us your answer for that too.
I have a very specific answer, and this is if it got adapted in the Sonic way, where you can tell it's not going to be very authentic or whatever. This is my bad Hollywood Rae the Doe movie, which is how they all start, which is there's a portal to our world, and Ray's world is completely separate because that's how they all start. So
Rae the Doe back in action.
Yeah, exactly. So Rae the Doe gets teleported from her world, and maybe there's 10 minutes of Rae the Doe hanging out with her friends, and it's authentic or whatever, and animated. But then she gets portaled to our world, where she's a horrifying 3D furry, not furry furry. I mean furry Detective Pikachu. She has one giant photorealistic eye.
Oh no!
And she lands in the backyard of this guy who is I'm gonna say Elijah Wood or something. Just a very dorky guy who wants to become a furry, but he's too shy because his dad is a hunter. And his dad doesn't support it. And his dad is just let's go hunting deer. And then the kid's just I don't want to. I like animals. And the dad's just you're a baby. And eventually, and the movie is about Rae teaching this guy how to accept himself while avoiding the government who's tracking her down because, of course. And the ending of the movie is at a fur con. And everyone thinks that Rae is just a really good fursuit.
How much time have you spent thinking about this?
I cannot believe how well fleshed out that was.
Do you want to hear something wild about it?
Yes.
I came up with that last February, like a month after the comic came out. So, and I remember saying this in Discord. I was just like, this is my idea. This is what it would be. If it was, I thought of this like before I saw all the Sonic movie stuff. And I was just like, this is like the sort of movie that like I was describing. I love it. I like have this weird part of my brain who's like, I love my OCs, I love all my comics and stuff, but I'm like, I also kind of just want to see it get destroyed by Hollywood. Of just being like Rae the Doe is like hanging out with like just like human people, and they're just playing some like terrible pop song in the trailer. And there's like a record scratch at some point, and everyone's just like, gulp.
Anyways, why don't we wrap back to Kaylee's question of the week? So my pick for the genre. No, that was so fantastic. My pick for the genre of a Rae the Doe TV show would be shonen. I'm talking Rae the Doe's Bizarre Adventure, where everyone is absurdly muscular. It would be so good.
All right, if it's Rae the Doe's Bizarre Adventure, what's Ray's stand?
Are all the stands based on music?
No, they just are named after music.
Oh, okay.
See, I feel like Rae the Doe stand would have to be something where like Rae makes a bad pun and then it comes to life, and that's like the attack ability. It's like you can just make things by making puns about things.
That's almost the ability of one character from I forget what it's called, but it's the same genre as JoJo.
When is this coming out? This podcast?
Week from Tuesday.
A week from Tuesday?
Yep.
The 29th?
Yes.
That's the day before my birthday. Sweet. Okay. I guess I will say this then. I am making a second week of Reboots comics where I parody other comics, and I was thinking about doing a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure parody, and I think I just will now. I just have to now.
Do it. Oh my god, that will be so good.
I'm very happy about this.
I feel like her stand name needs to be Run Away With Me, though, or a Carly Rae Jepsen song.
Yeah.
And I like that because it gives me an excuse to read JoJo's just to parody it, because I've wanted to read JoJo's, and I just like have an excuse.
It's good.
It's good.
It's also like over 1,000 chapters at this point.
I'm ready.
Anyways,
I'll read them all.
Kaylee, what's your answer?
I want to see a Rae the Doe police procedural. You're a loose cannon, Rae.
Detective, what happened here? Well, Captain Rae, the victim was defeated in fight first, which explains all the scratch marks, and then burned alive. And then Rae pulls out a pair of sunglasses and looks into the distance and says, "You could say they were roasted."
So it's just CSI at this point.
Look, I'm just saying, if it was a Rae the Doe crime procedural, Rae would have to make a pun about every single dead body.
Hand in your punnin' badge.
I was thinking like more along the lines of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but
that would also be really good.
I would like to see that, but it's Sybil and Lottie's detective agency.
That would be good.
That would be good. I have an actual answer for this, actually. Like a non-joke one, because I've thought about this, actually. Which is, there's two answers. One is like, if I got enough money on my Patreon to do animated shorts, it would just be a self-contained short every time with kind of like a Christmas special thing where it's like 5 minutes long and it's just its own story. But if I had like a Netflix show, by the way, Netflix, call me up. I know you like sad animals. You got BoJack and you got Agretsuko. I got some sad animals. I would have it so like it's like an adaptation of the comic where like it starts and there's none of the characters in it, and then like in episode 2 she meets Mimi and they start dating, and then she meets Sybil and then she meets Lottie, and then blah 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 blah. And I think the tone would be I would say the tone of BoJack, where it's very silly but also very serious, but I'd say it wouldn't be like Rae is a bad person. It would just more be like Rae is sad, and sad things happen in life sometimes. Because I think my favorite genre of TV is things that are very sad but also very funny. So I think I would want to make that. Like, I imagine a show where there's lots of puns in it, but also at the end of some episodes, like the Mountain Goats would have a song playing during the credits, and you'd be like, damn, I can't wait to see what happens next. That's my idea.
Yeah, I don't have a follow-up to that.
I'm just kidding. It would be a live action show where everyone's in a fursuit, and it's like The Big Bang Theory, like they're all in just one apartment.
No, the other idea was way better.
Yeah.
Wait, but would you not watch a one camera or what is it called, multi-camera sitcom where everyone's just in a fursuit the whole time and you just can't see anyone's face?
I mean, of course I would. I would just be unhappy about it.
So if you have another good answer to the question of the week, feel free to tweet it at us, send it via email, or put it in the Discord. We like to feature our favorite answer to each question of the week in the next episode. But with that said, it's about time to wrap up. Olive, thank you so much for coming on. This has been such a pleasure, and I'm going to be thinking about Rae the Doe's stretchy horns in my nightmares for the rest of my life. Olive, where can our listeners find you and your comic?
Twitter.com/Olive Brinker, Patreon.com/Rae the Doe. And I'm gaydisaster.com is the store. RaeTheDoe.com right now leads to the Tumblr, which I really don't use anymore. But I'll make it an actual site soon. But yeah, Patreon and Twitter are the two number one ways to just see my things.
So if you enjoyed this podcast, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/settingtherecordqueer. Patrons can get early guest reveals, a special Discord channel, high quality or early episode releases, and even special thanks on the podcast. Otherwise, or in addition, if you liked this podcast, please leave a review. Please tell a friend. Please talk about us on your social media. If you want to get in contact with us or talk about us, you can do so on our Twitter at STRQueercast. Send your feedback and comments to settingtherecordqueer@gmail.com or join our community Discord where you can hang out with fellow Setting the Record Queer listeners, your hosts, and even some of our guests who have decided to grace us with their presence at bit.ly/STRQcord. While you're there, if you have an idea for who or what could be on this podcast, or you think you could be on this podcast, please let us know. We're always looking for guest ideas. The logo for this podcast was designed by Cubotic, that's QBTIC on Twitter, or Cobot, QOBOT.tumblr.com. Our theme music was made by Thrill Me Music. You can find more information about her work at thrillmemusic.squarespace.com. This podcast was edited by Kaylee and produced by yours truly, Alexis. Kaylee, where can our listeners find you?
People can find me on Twitter at WitchesHex, that's WITCHS Hex, or on Twitch at the same name, but with an underscore between Witches and Hex.
And you can find me on Twitch and YouTube as Proto Magical Girl, or Twitch at proto.ml, and Twitter and Instagram as Princess Proto. Our favorite answer to last week's Kaylee's question of the week, which was, if you could anamorph into any non-animal, what would it be? Came from Violet Moon in the Discord, who said, a ceiling fan, because I always like making my friends feel cool, and I'm all of their biggest fans. Thank you so much for listening. This has been another wonderful episode of Setting the Record Queer, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
Bye!
Oh, bye.
How scandalous. Collarbones. Except not even collarbones, because it was not nearly that unbuttoned.
I refuse to show my collarbones. I refuse.
Truly a woman of high standards.
I'll only show my collarbones after marriage.
It's true, I've never seen her collarbones. Only not too many months left, but I have not seen those collarbones yet.